Hey everybody, this is Alicia Purdy and you are listening to Living Out Loud on the Alive Radio Network. Thank you for joining me today. It's always a delight to be able to come and speak to you every Monday morning-ish, afternoon, lunchtime, what have you. I'm sitting here with a delightful cup of coffee. I don't normally drink, what am I talking about? I drink all the time. No, I'm just kidding. I don't normally drink coffee when I'm on the air, but this is just one of those days, isn't it? So, how was your weekend? I hope that you had a lovely weekend where the joy of the Lord was your strength. Certainly he has shown himself to me o'er and o'er, as the hymnist would say. So here's what I did. I early voted. So there is one big day left until a historic election. I was talking to my older son and I said, it's a historic election. And he's like, every election is historic. And I said, actually, that's not technically true. This whole COVID thing, it really has brought a new layer onto what we're trying to accomplish here in the United States of America. I read an article this weekend about Newt Gingrich said that at any given point in time, and I agreed with this, I liked what he had to say, that at any given point in time, America is either one step away from tyranny or one step closer into freedom. And it's not even that it's so historic in and of itself, I suppose, that it's, Donald Trump, a businessman, billionaire, and then Joe Biden, the man of the people, supposedly. That's not the kind of person I am, so he is not my dude. But anyway, it's not even that it's like some historic showdown. What's really historic is that early voting, that's actually quite historic. The turnout in early voting has been really historic. And so I was voting this weekend. I actually skipped church to vote. I had to. I went to vote. This was my fourth attempt at voting. I tried to early vote 3 other times by going to the Board of Elections, and then I went to a polling place in one town, and then I went to a polling place in another town, and it rained all week, and the lines were around the building. I couldn't believe it. I kept thinking I was going to beat the crowds. Well, no siree, I did not beat the crowds. In fact, so when I went out on Sunday morning, I did skip church. I got there at 9. I got there a little bit before 9 o'clock, and the line was wrapped around the building again, and it was very, very cold out. I waited in line for probably a solid hour. And the reason why I went on Sunday is so I didn't have my kids, because I just knew it would be misery upon misery, the 7th circle of hell type of experience. And so I just wanted to vote and get out of there. I had this big grandiose thing like, I'm going to show my daughters the way a republic is run. We're not a democracy, by the way, fun fact. We're actually a republic. And so repeatedly, Joe Biden has talked about how we have to protect our democracy. I don't know what he's talking about. I would venture to say he does not know either when he calls America a democracy, because we are not. We are one nation under God. We are a republic, to the republic for which we stand, one nation under God. And so anyway, Joe Biden should watch Living Out Loud and listen to me on the radio, because I could teach him a thing or two, especially about pronunciation. But let's move along. Anyway, so I did go to vote. I'm going to tell you something that really bugged me, though. I was standing in line, and it was my turn. I finally got in the door. It was finally warm, and in front of me was somebody who appeared to be homeless. I don't know his living situation. I'm probably just making a gross, sweeping generalization here. But anyway, he appeared to be homeless. The polling place in Albany, the Board of Elections, is right across the street from the City Mission, and a lot of the guys were just kind of standing out there. So he looked like a guy who had come over from the City Mission, and no problem, whatever, you're American, go ahead and vote. But I overheard him, and he got up there, and the man said, are you registered to vote? And the guy said, no, I'm not. And the election official was like, okay, no problem. We'll just give you this piece of paper and fill out this affidavit, and then you can vote. You are who you say you are, right? You swear to God. The guy was like, yeah. And the guy was like, yeah, sure, come on in, buddy. And I was like, what? So then I get up there. I had my driver's license ready and like American flag pin, and they had given me my I voted sticker, and I was like, I'm true blue American patriot, Liz Joy, Donald Trump. Well, when I got up there, he said, oh, what's your name? And I really could have said anything. So Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, right? No. I'm like, okay, my name's Alicia Purdy. So he's like, okay, is this you? And he just turns the screen around, and it has like my name and my address. And I was like, yeah, that's me. It could have been anybody. I could have said any name under the sun that I heard at the street. I could have taken someone's name off their name tag at ShopRite, and I could have said that. And I'm like, yeah, man, that's me. And they let me in the vote. They never even asked for my ID. That is why this is an historic election. The restrictions are loosened. Do you know that the #1 trending Google search last week was, can I change my vote? Let me tell you this, because if you are listening to this right now on Monday, now this matters, if it's Monday, November 2nd, that you are listening to this show, or if you're watching the replay, before you vote on Tuesday, if you live in the state of New York, yes, you can change your vote. If you did not vote in person and you used absentee ballot or mail-in ballot to vote, any kind of paper vote, you can show up. That's all you have to do. You just have to show up at a polling place and give them your name. And guess what? They will record your second vote as the vote. Do you know that high numbers of people regretted voting for Joe Biden? So if that is you, you're going to have to go stand in line, but it is worth the wait. This is your country. It's one day out of your life. United States of America needs you. So go vote in person, and if you voted by paper and you want to change your mind and vote for Donald Trump, you can go do that. All you have to do is show up. So anyway, there's a little PSA for you. You don't even need an ID. God bless America. So I talked a little bit last week. I'm going to share a little bit more about the sort of saga that our family has been going through with the public school system in the city of Albany. So my daughter was bullied by some kids who demanded to know if she ascribed to Black Lives Matter and if she supported Donald Trump. And when she didn't answer the way they wanted her to answer, it became an ongoing slew of bullying, nasty behaviors. And when I say ongoing, I'm talking every single day for the past several weeks. And so, you know what? I realized I kind of saw my life flashing before my eyes. Now, this is a new school for us. I want to say that we were happily in a school, and I got super uppity thinking, not my little angels, they deserve the best. And while I do think that, this wasn't the best. And so I thought, I really had it in my mind that this other school would be a better option for them. And so it was a lottery school. We got in, and I made the decision, and I will say in all fairness, it was over my husband's protest. Sometimes I can steamroll him because, you know, wives, we know what we're doing. It's really a power that we have to keep under control. I swear to God, it's like the spirit of Eve. It's not even Jezebel. I'm going to go even further back than that. It's the spirit of Eve. She desires to control her husband. And while that is not my desire, we do have a way, women, let's just be honest. And so I did do it anyway. And I was able to convince him to go along with it in my special wifey, womanly way. I'm not being weird. I'm just saying we have a way of talking and convincing people to do things. We get in people's heads, right? And so that's what I did. I used that power and got into his head, and we put our kids in this new school. So that's on me. So what ended up happening, though, was they began to really turn on my daughter. And the more I spoke I met with the teachers, I met with the principals. I actually levied several legal threats. I said, if you don't make this stop, we're going to fight at the district level. Okay, we're going to fight on the legal level. And all of a sudden, and someone had said to me, you're going to have to hire an attorney. And all of a sudden I had this flash before my eyes of like Norma Ray standing on top of the table for the labor union. And like she had the sign, like she stood up there silently and she held the word union. By the way, the teachers union in the United States of America, specifically in New York, is the largest mafia in our country. I don't know if you know that. I know there are good people. I have actually lovely friends who are teachers, and they will tell you this, that the reason why people had to unionize was because employees were not treating their employers were not treating their employees fairly, and they weren't giving them a fair wage, and they weren't giving them breaks. And Norma Ray's dad died of a heart attack because he didn't get his break on time. And whatever, these things happen. People burned down in buildings in Chicago, in sweatshops. I get it. The teachers union has become a cat of another color, as they would say. And so someone said to me, you're going to have to hire an attorney. And all of a sudden I just saw this whole future. And for a split second I thought, yeah, I'm going to make heads roll, and I'm going to get the school board position. I'm going to be the president of the school board, and I'm going to turn everybody Christian and conservative, and that'll be coals of fire upon their head. For like a split second. And then all of a sudden I thought, this is not the future that I want for myself. Not only that, I don't believe God's called me to that future. And I just said, Alicia, what are you fighting for? You're fighting for your children. Day by day, I'm standing on the table, holding up my union sign, right? And my children are being bullied. And I thought, I think I'm done. I think I'm going to call this a day. And so my husband, we had a talk, and he said, let's just leave. Let's just go. We have the option to go back to the school that we were at, and we were happy there, and whatever. So Here's what I was wrestling with, though. This is what I want to tell you. I do believe that we are called, I wrote a blog on the Way of the Worshiper. It's called Fight, Flight, Fear, or Faith, saying we all have to make that decision when things get hard. Are we going to run? Are we going to fight? Are we going to cower in fear and just, let the world heap upon us? Are we going to stand in faith? I don't believe that those are choices. I believe that those are callings. That what has God called you to? Has he called you to stand and fight? Just to stay there and fight? Has he called you to advance in the fight? Has he called you to be on the offensive, the defensive? Has he called you to retreat? There are those seasons. Look at Gideon. Hundreds of warriors were sent home because of Gideon. Gideon sent them for a season in their tent. But at the end of Gideon's story, they come back and they're refreshed when the other armies wiped out. They were like the offensive team that comes in when you're in football, and then you have the defensive team. Sometimes you have to sit on the bench for a little while, and then it's time for you to go in. And so we really had to make that decision. Is this a stand and fight? Is this a having done all to stand? Is this a take a season in your tent? What is this, Lord? And so I was really wrestling with the idea that I felt God had spoken to me to put my children in that new school. And I had to stand and acknowledge the fact that maybe I didn't hear from the Lord. Maybe I got it wrong. Maybe the Lord was saying something else. And I have struggled with that for days and days and days. And so many people were encouraging to me, actually. So if you left me a comment at any point in time, and from last week, that if you watched the show or listened to it on air last week, I was in a zone, I was in a place, right? And so you guys, people reached out and they left me such lovely comments and scriptures and words of encouragement. You have no idea what that did for my heart and for my faith, and it helped me take this to the Lord in an even deeper place. And I will say, when you feel like you've missed God or you haven't heard from God, and then somebody else is affected by that, that stung. That stung to think that my children were coming home sad and beaten down, and I'm over here writing letters and like, I'm gonna fight. I'm thinking this is the right thing. And my husband had said, in all fairness, he had said, I don't think we should do this. I don't feel like this is the path for them. And I was like, well, I think it is. And hey, look, that's a whole nother chapter in our story, right? And so we all have those chapters in our marriage. So I had to repent for that. I said, you're right, and I was wrong, and I'm sorry. And I repented to my daughter. I said, look, I made the wrong choice. I sat her down on the couch and I said, we're taking you out of school and we're putting you back into your other school. And I said, you know what, Mom made the wrong choice. And I did it for the right reasons, and I did it out of the right heart. And God was good to us, and he's helped us all along the way. But this is not a blood covenant. I took her out of the school and put her back into her old school. End of discussion. And so anyway, we're very excited. Now, we went to start that new school, and they actually sent us away because earlier in the week, my other daughter, had lied about something at school and told them she had a headache. Well, a headache is symptom number one, ground zero symptom for COVID. And so they sent her home. They sent both my daughters home and said, you have to get a COVID test now, because my daughter had a headache because she didn't want to eat her pancakes. So that's where that all began. So this week has been quite a saga. And if you know me at all, I swing from saga to saga. I don't know why. I come by it naturally. I think it's either the Holy Spirit or it's Satan. I actually at 43, I haven't figured that out yet. So anyway, last week was like the Chinese water torture of Satan in my life. And this week, I'm turning the torture back on him. I'm going to Chinese water torture him. I'm going to witness to everybody I can think of. I'm going to call and write words of encouragement. I'm going to give words to him who is weary, just because people did that to me. And it really did do something. Honestly, it did. So anyway, thank you. So I turned 43 last week. It's a lovely age. Birthdays are a great time of reflection, where you've come from, where you've been, where you want to go in life. And one of those things I've been working through is, what is a hope and a dream? What is the will of God in my life? And don't you know, I'm stepping carefully now, because now I'm like, have I ever heard from God about anything? So we have to, man, that is really part of the walk of faith, isn't it? We do miss God. But we also do, my mom was saying to me, it really encouraged me, and she had said, you know what? Sometimes we miss God, or we don't understand his voice, or we see through a glass darkly, or whatever that is the Bible says, about different seasons in our lives. There are different scriptures for that. But at the same time, it's a challenge to get to know the voice of the Lord even better. I'm not an expert in the voice of the Lord, and certainly I'm not an expert on anything in the Christian faith. So, you know what? It's a challenge to me. It was a challenge to my faith this week, and it's something I actually still am wrestling with. I don't know if that's something that you wrestle with. Did I hear from God? Did I miss God? But I do want to say this to you. If you're in a place like I was, saying, wow, I've really flubbed up around here with this, and everybody is suffering because of me. Well, if that's you and you're anything like me, let me encourage you with something. It's not a blood covenant. It isn't. Most things can be undone. And if they can't be undone, you can at least unravel My mom always says, never cut what you can unravel. So lots of things can be unraveled that I think we try to cut. But we need to have the leading of the Holy Spirit. Is this a situation where I stand and fight, flight, freeze, or faith? What has the Lord called me to here? So anyway, we retreated. You know what? In the state of New York, I'm going to tell you, did you guys see in your town, there was a massive President Trump rally yesterday? My son called and he actually said to me, did President Trump die? I was like, oh my gosh, I don't think so. And I was Googling it and I was like, what? I don't think he died. And no, it wasn't. He died. It was a parade in his honor, and it was like shutting down the Northway. So if you're in this area, the Northway is like a major highway that runs from north to south in the state of New York and goes all the way up to Canada and the Adirondack Northway. And so anyway, it was shutting down lines of the Northway. My son was traveling on it. Do you know that I Googled that? I couldn't find it reported anywhere. No local news outlets picked up the fact that there was a 10-mile Trump parade in Arizona. It was like 95 miles of Trump supporters. So this is what they don't want you to know. And this is why, I'm a big encourager of alternative, I don't want to say alternative media. You can really go down a right-wing rabbit hole like Saul and Mary Rubenstein, my friends, how they did that and they became haters of the Jews because they started reading alternate media. So be careful. But I'm a big fan. I'll give you a couple. I love the Daily Wire and I love the Blaze. I read Fox News. They're kind of a little centrist, but anyway, you have to. They weren't even reporting on it. But locally speaking, I wish I had known. Live radio certainly would have reported on it. I didn't even know because nobody reported on it. Normally, when I pick up the news, I look at the news wires. Nothing, of course, but it was there. So anyway, congratulations. I really have been praying for Liz Joy, my pal, and Donald Trump, my secret pal. He doesn't know he's my pal, but anyway, he is. So it was Halloween this week, and oh my goodness, Satan's just all over the place. So do you celebrate Halloween? Oh, don't leave a comment. Another Christian might see you. Maybe your pastor will. Maybe your pastor's the one making Halloween happen at your church. Everybody's got an opinion, don't they, on Halloween? I'm just curious. No judgment. I mean it. Normally I don't say that because I'm kind of a little judgy, but no judgment. I saw a great thing. If you come over to my Facebook page, my personal page, you can find I made it public. It's a great video from Answers in Genesis about Halloween. It's not judgy. In fact, at the end, Purdy, who's one of their top scientists there, he's a research guy, he had a wonderful perspective of the way churches celebrate Halloween. Now, we're going to assume that you're not the kind of church that has a bunch of vampires and blood and whatever. But if it's about like costumes and candy, one thing he said, look, it's also Reformation Day. I don't know if you know that, but it's the anniversary of when Martin Luther nailed the 95 Thesis to the Wittenberg door in Germany. And he really changed history because he took the world by the just shall live by faith. And by faith you are saved. It was such a departure from the teaching of the Catholic Church with all the indulgences and the trappings, etc. And it was radical thinking, even though it was in the Bible the whole time. It was really revelation of the Holy Spirit to transform the world. The Lord is so faithful to do that. And so, anyway, what Purdy was saying in this Answers in Genesis is so excellent. He really traced the history of really Samhain, which is the Irish roots of how we celebrate Halloween, brought over here by the Irish and the Scots and the Celts and the Druids, etc. But he goes back even further than that to Noah, and he goes even back further than that to Adam, and he talks about the concept of a sacrifice and how the Druids would often do sacrifices during the moon. And he was talking about every culture in the entire world, as far back as you can ever trace it, has a concept of sacrifice. They have a culture of sacrifice of something. The Mayans are ripping people's hearts out. Molech, they were rolling babies down into Molech's mouth. The Irish were creating, and the Germans were creating pyres, and they would stuff people into them and set them on fire. They would do all these crazy things because along the way, the idea of a blood sacrifice became twisted outside of the gospel. And anyways, a fascinating teaching that he does there. He's such a good researcher. But anyway, what he was saying in that is, however it is that you choose to celebrate Halloween, never forsake the gospel. And so he said, if you're going to use it as an outreach, a trunk or treat at your church, whatever that is that you do, not only honor the Lord, but never forget to include the gospel and share with people these things. And so, you have them all trapped, right? They're eating candy. Now you can say, before you get your bag, have a seat. And we're going to talk to you about the gospel of Jesus Christ. Now everybody's a captive audience and they'd like to have their piece of candy, right? And so now you can say, we're going to tell you. So we did that. We used to do something called Journey to Bethlehem, which was in Utah. And it was like a live action passion play that you would walk through, take like 20 minutes, you walk through it, and you would essentially watch the story of Christ. And you'd be part of it, and they'd give you a little bag of gold and all these things. And at the end, right before you got to the hot chocolate, they would sit there and share the gospel with you. I mean, what a powerful thing. It was a wonderful thing. So I loved that. You know what? I thought, some people want to dress up and they want to parties, and churches get so odd about that, and Christians do. And I've shared my story about Halloween in the past. My stories are crazy. I have nothing but crazy stories in my past about Halloween and terror and fear of, like I had said, about like the goats' heads being cut off or something, and children being kidnapped. But all that to say, I loved his perspective of the gospel. So you should go check it out. Anyway, let me give you a couple other things. Oh, so this week is the anniversary of two very fascinating cultural phenomena. One is October 29, 1929, so this is in this same week we're in right now, was the crash of the stock market. People, when the stock market crashed, there was mass suicides. People were doing wild things because, it did legitimately launch our country into the Great Depression, which was a terrible time. But people became so depressed and they became in despairing of their lives, and they killed themselves because they lost all their money. Now, fast forward a couple of years, we're looking at October 30th, 1938. So as a journalist, this kind of stuff fascinates me. The War of the Worlds radio broadcast panicked millions of Americans. So The War of the Worlds was written by H.G. Wells, and unrelated to him was Orson Welles, who was a dramatist, and he had been on Broadway, and he was a young man. So he decided to dramatize this book, The War of the Worlds, which at this point in time, this is what you have to understand, at this point in time, everybody thought science fiction was not only stupid, but it was like for children. It was for like idiots and children. And so nobody took science fiction seriously. So he is an actor and he loves all this stuff, and they did music and they dramatized it as though it were a real radio broadcast. Now, legitimately speaking, he made a few missteps along the way. So if you don't know the story, it's basically about Martians invading New Jersey. And so what he did, one of the things they didn't realize, first of all, they had no clue people would believe them. Absolutely no clue. They truly thought only an idiot would believe this. In fact, the original script and some of the studio notes were showing that they were all laughing. They thought, no one is going to buy this. We're going to make it so campy and so hammy that no one would possibly buy it, right? It wasn't even believable. Well, they were wrong. And so Orson Welles woke up the next day and basically said later, if I'd planned to wreck my career, I couldn't have done it better than this, because they woke up Halloween Day, and they hated him. People were killing themselves. They were killing each other. They were doing all these wild behaviors because they thought the world was ending. One of the things he didn't do was that he didn't take a station break. And so if this had been a drama back then, if you were listening to dramas, there was always a station break at the half hour, and they didn't do that. So people assumed you would only do that for breaking news. So in that way, he didn't really understand radio, and he failed to follow some of the radio news sort of signals. And so the other thing they forgot was they had started the show by saying it was a dramatization. Most people didn't even tune in till 5 minutes in, right? And so now, then they don't take a station break. Then they don't announce that it's a dramatization until 45 minutes in, and people have already killed themselves at this point. And so I will tell you, Orson Welles said later that he was shocked and bewildered. He had no idea that people were so stupid. That's essentially what he said. He said, I had absolutely no idea this was something a child could see through. Well, it made him famous all around the world. The world blew up. It was for the wrong reasons, obviously. But I will say, so I was reading this and I was kind of laughing to myself, like, this poor man became famous all around the world for something he did not want to be famous for, right? So my thought was this. Let me see if you agree with this. I think, especially when you look at the stock market, now that was a terrible thing to happen. Now, I don't believe that money is worth killing yourself over. I don't think anything is worth killing yourself over. Like I said, nothing is a blood covenant. The worst, my parents used to tell me when I was a kid, the worst sin you could ever possibly conceive of will help you figure out. You can get out of this. We'll help you. Maybe you have some consequences to walk through. We'll walk with you. Maybe you have, now you have a mountain to climb. Well, we'll climb with you. So anyway, here's the thing. I just experienced this actually this week when someone freaked out at me, passive-aggressively through a backdoor channel. Anyway, people who freak out at these things in life. They run out and kill themselves, or they break a relationship with you, or they overreact to something that wasn't even real, like this. the War of the Worlds. It wasn't even real. And Orson Welles is here thinking a child would see through it, right? Well, no. Some people took him very seriously. I've actually been there. I've been the genuine person who truly tried to do something interesting, funny, profound, artistic, whatever that might be. And I have had it blow up my face. And I thought to myself, finally, you know what? Some people are just waiting for a trigger to freak out. Here's the thing. When people overreact and they freak out about something, the fact is this. You are not actually the problem. Maybe you're the straw that broke the camel's back, but you're not actually the problem. They were already freaking out, and they were just internally. They're just good at hiding it, and they were looking for any reason to take that out on the next person that causes them, that triggers that emotion in them. And so some people live really in a perpetual state of trigger. Some people live on an emotional hair trigger, and then you come along and you broadcast War of the Worlds and they go kill themselves. You hang a rainbow flag and people leave your church. Or you do some kind of action that wasn't genuinely intended by you, and people flip out. Well, you know what I've come to realize? It wasn't me the whole time. It was actually them. They were just looking for someone to blame. And so poor Orson Welles, he went down in history though, didn't he? His name got out there. All press is good press, as we say in journalism. So with my few remaining minutes, I do want to talk to you about, I just talking about keyword searches. The last couple of weeks I've been talking about what people are searching for on Google, and they're coming over and finding the way of the worshiper through these searches, okay? So I've talked about this, as the deer pants for water. When people type that in, they end up finding the way of the worshiper, which is wonderful for me. Jesus wept. Deny yourself, take up your cross, follow Jesus. When the enemy comes in like a flood. So here's what people are searching for this week. And I did put up a blog about it. I highly recommend you check it out, actually. So it is this. Woo-hoo-hoo. Should we judge others, or are we told, do not judge? Is it Christ-like to judge another person? Oh, you have to. Oh, you know. Come over to the way of the worshiper. It's right at the top of the blog. Judge others or do not judge. Okay, so that is something people really want to know about, because the world and even other Christians are like, how are you going to judge me? Well, I have an answer for you, and it is entirely scriptural, and I highly encourage you to check it out, because I guarantee you somebody somewhere, if you are walking with the Lord for 5 minutes and you try to speak up, somebody somewhere is going to say, who are you to judge me? So I really want to talk about from a biblical perspective. It's not Alicia's words. These are things that I've looked at in the Bible. And so that's what I'm sharing. I'm not saying come on over here and see what I think about it. Come on over and see what the Lord has shown me about it. I really want to share it with you. So that's what people are searching for. And oh man, also this week, I really do, this is going to challenge you. I want you to take a look at the way of the worshiper when you get on this morning, and look at this one. It's called, Are You Worshiping the Unknown God? And you remember Paul in the city of Athens went and talked to the men of Athens about, they had many gods and worshiping the unknown God. I think that you're going to be really challenged in a good way about the perspective of, is he the unknown God? Do you really know the God that you're worshiping? It's really going to challenge your faith. It challenged mine. And so come on over. These are things that other people are looking at. They're looking for things. Okay, here's one more I'm going to give you. The Lord gave me. So out of Psalm 118. So in Psalm 118, David's had a really rough day. And so what he's talking about in Psalm 118, he says this, you pushed me violently, and I was about to fall down, but the Lord helped me. The Lord is my strength and my song, and he has become my salvation. That's Psalm 118, 13 and 14. Somebody out there, lots of people actually, are searching about being pushed violently by other people, Christians specifically. So if that is you, if you're in a season where someone is just shoving you from behind, maybe Satan, that's certainly been my experience this week, or another person, come over and check it out. Also, come over to the Way of the Worshiper on Facebook. I actually put different things on there so that you guys can take a look at that. And the Lord has really been ministering to me out of the book of Isaiah. Lots of good things going on. Anyway, I hope that today's program encouraged you. I hope that you have a lovely week. I pray God's blessings be upon you. Please pray the same for me. You guys, I need to walk with the Lord. He is my strength and my song. And this week, let him be yours. All right, have a great week, everybody. Bye-bye.